Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Gerard Pratt, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is leading aircraftman Michael Mackay. This evening's last post ceremony commemorates the 110th anniversary of the Australian Naval and Military Expeditionary Force landing on New Britain. At the outbreak of the First World War, the German East Asia Squadron was seen as posing a potential threat to Allied merchant shipping in the region. New Guinea was part of the Imperial German Pacific Protectorates, which included the German Solomon Islands, the Caroline Islands, Palau, some of the Mariana Islands, the Marshall Islands, and Nauru. Britain requested that Australia seize German wireless stations in German New Guinea and establish a military administration occupying the territory under the British flag. The force was hurriedly formed in early August and consisted of an infantry battalion of 1,000 men and 500 naval reservists and ex-sailors. On the 11th of September, a small party attempted to capture an inland wireless station at Bitapaka. In the skirmishes that followed, 6 Australians were killed or died as a result of their wounds. They would be the first of the Australian forces to die in the First World War. By the 17th of September, terms had been reached and all military resistance ended. With German New Guinea under Australian control, the German threat in the region had ceased and Australian military occupation began. Today, we will recall the story of Major Charles Edye Manning, who was part of the Australian Naval and Military Expeditionary Force landing on New Britain and was later killed in action on the 7th of August 1916 on the Western Front. This evening, we're honoured to acknowledge Air Vice Marshal Harvey Reynolds, Deputy Chief of Air Force, and the accompanying delegation. We also warmly welcome Mr Gavin Hicks, Vice President of the Returned and Services League of Australia, ACT branch. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of the Australian Christian College from Benalla in Victoria and the Wandowan State School from Wandowan, Queensland. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Major Charles Edye Manning. Charles Manning was born on the 24th of October 1879 and was the first of 6 children born to Justice Charles James Manning and Emily Manning nee Guttridge. Charles grew up at Hunters Hill and attended the prestigious King's School at Parramatta, where he served as an officer in the school's cadets. After King's, Manning went on to the Law College at Oxford in the United Kingdom, where he gained his law degree. While he was away, Manning's father Charles, who had been in ill health for some years, died in August of 1898. Manning had returned to Australia by 1901, and in January of 1902, he became an associate of the Honourable Justice Langer Owen. He was admitted to the New South Wales Bar in November of 1904. Charles Manning also had a keen interest in soldiering. He served as a lieutenant in the militia commanding B Company of the 34th Infantry. Soon after the outbreak of the First World War, Manning joined the Australian Naval and Military Expeditionary Force known as the AN&MEF and was granted a commission as a lieutenant. The force left Sydney in August of 1914 and made its way to the island of New Britain to Australia's north. Elements of the AN&MEF landed at Bitterparker on the 11th of September, and the following day the rest of the force landed at Rabaul to take to the surrender of the German forces there. Given his legal training, Manning was made Assistant Judge Advocate General, and he was asked to draw up the deed of surrender. After the document was signed and sealed, the official seal, which is now on display at the War Memorial here, was presented to him. When the AN&MEF returned home in May of 1915, Manning joined the Australian Imperial Force at once as a lieutenant. On the 10th of May, Manning was promoted to captain and became battalion adjutant. He embarked with his unit aboard the transport ship Euripides, bound for Egypt. While Manning was at sea, his brother, Captain Guy Manning, serving with 1 Tropical Battalion AN&MEF, was killed in a motorbike accident while on an inspection tour of New Ireland. In England, the 24th Battalion underwent a tough training regime throughout July and August, as there had been no time to train the men properly before they left Australia. The battalion arrived on Gallipoli on the 7th of September and was sent straight to the forward lines at Courtney's Post. Over the following months, the 24th and 23rd Battalions alternated every 24 hours in the frontline trenches at Lone Pine due to the intensity of the fighting there. With casualties beginning to mount, Manning was promoted to Major in early October. During a Turkish bombardment of Lone Pine on the 29th of November, Manning was buried by a shell. He was quickly dug out but was evacuated from Gallipoli the following day, suffering concussion and shell shock. Manning rejoined the 24th Battalion in Egypt on the 15th of January 1916. He was hospitalised again, this time with mumps. He spent several weeks recovering before returning to his unit at the beginning of March. At the end of the month, the battalion sailed for France on the 20th of March and disembarked at Marseille. After a brief period on the nursery sector on the border of France and Belgium, the battalion was sent south to the Somme. The 24th Battalion saw its first major action in France during the Battle of Pozières at the end of July. The 24th Battalion went into reserve positions at Tara Hill near Albert in early August, but was still well within range of German artillery. On the night of the 7th of August, Manning and 4 other officers went to sleep in a gun pit. The battalion was subjected to a German bombardment and a shell struck the gun pit, killing Manning and 3 other officers. The commanding officer survived, but was evacuated, badly wounded. Manning, aged 36, and his comrades were laid to rest in Bécourt military cemetery near Albert. In November, he was posthumously mentioned in General Sir Douglas Haig's dispatches as a most reliable and valuable officer whose steadfast devotion to duty was as conspicuous as his cheerful gallantry in action. His name is listed in the Roll of Honour on my right amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Major Charles Edye Manning, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or on the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.